A big thanks to Frank and Orange Business Services for kicking off the show with a look at supporting ever-evolving customer challenges. Ooh. Up next, the much-needed and highly anticipated cloud provider perspective. Let's listen in as Shawn Hakl, VP 5G Strategy with Microsoft, discusses Azure for Operators. Over to you, Shawn.
Thanks, Jeff, and I appreciate the opportunity. Thanks, Nan, and the others on the board of the MEF for inviting me here today to share a little bit with you Microsoft's perspective. I think this is particularly important given that MEF is looking very carefully at sort of the effective network slicing and how 5G and SD-WAN work together end to end to provide that seamless experience to the operators. So I'd like to provide a perspective from sort of the other end of the communication, which is the destination, which is the cloud and the app side. And so I'll share today with you a little bit about Microsoft's Azure for Operator strategy, which is essentially our foray into this space. With that, I will jump into this and keep moving. Being Microsoft's VP of 5G strategy, I often get asked why Microsoft even has a strategy around 5G, and I'm not going to extol you with all the awesomeness that 5G can do, because I'm sure you know it probably is better as well or better than I can. What I can share with you, however, is sort of why Microsoft gets excited in this space and why we view operators as natural partners and the industry as natural partners for us. In a 7x24 always-on connected world, almost every transaction that goes from the mobile to the cloud, every connected device to cloud-based service is going to transit an operator on its way to the cloud. And so we think it's incredibly important for us to have a very close partnership with the operator community and in order to ensure that mobile to cloud experience is simple, it's secure, and it's resilient. And so we view that as a natural place for us to come together. The other thing I'd like to share is that we pull a lot of interesting data from our platform that tells us where we see the innovations in 5G really moving forward. And so I'd like to share sort of as a result of the more than 5 billion trending to actually 10 billion per month cognitive service transactions that we do, as I sift through the data, the more than 1 million machine learning experiments that get done on our platform every month, and looking at the use cases associated with the almost 7 billion devices that IoT devices that we manage today through IoT Central, IoT Hub. We've sort of narrowed down sort of where we see a lot of the interest in the user base in 5G. To start with, right, we view our mission to be the world's computer, and we see the combination of 5G, in particular the eMBB or the high bandwidth mobility offering, together with compute at the edge, giving people access to compute where they need it, when they need it, ubiquitous end compute. And once you've got ubiquitous compute, you really move into this ability to intersect the physical and the virtual world. And that's where we see the ability to bring together 5G, particularly MMTC and URLLC, together with the power of edge compute, cognitive services, and the IoT capabilities at the edge of the network in order for us to be able to instrument the real world and use the power of big data and AI to really affect what goes on. And so I'll give you an example of that. We see a lot of interest in intelligent video. So this is a case where, for example, people take and analyze a high bandwidth video feed to understand what's going on in an environment, whether it's for worker safety purposes, production, or a pick and pack quality assurance, where you can actually interpret that camera feed. There's about 1,000-to-1 compression between sort of the video data into the data you pass into your inference engine, analyze it there, and actually make real-time changes. The low latency of 5G combined with the presence of ubiquitous edge compute allow you to actually affect the real world versus waiting around like you do in 4G today, where you collect data, ship it to the cloud, and it can tell you what to do next time. And then finally, much as we are communicating today over a remote link versus meeting face to face in a presentation, in a forum or in an arena, we see the next generation of content experiences taking place over 5G and in new forms, whether it be the way we play, the way we learn, or the way that we work, with collaboration, whether it be for mixed reality, for working on enterprise cases, or in gaming, whether it be the next generation of collaboration suite, etc. All of this see we coming together. So as a result, Microsoft is coming closer and closer with the operator community to make these services work seamlessly for our end users together. So what is Azure for Operators? Well, if you think about it, it's a customer-led initiative. In other words, what pulled us into this space? It's really customer led. And if you think about it, traditionally, Microsoft has worked with the IT department at the operator, really bringing forward either infrastructure and more recently ways to automate and optimize business process with the analysis of analytics and big data. And what that is really, if you think about it, the complication created in that back office IT shop is driven a lot by the underlying complexity of the network. So a conversation that started in the IT department ended up in talking with the network as well. Similarly, on the product side of the house, we've had a long history of partnering with operators around the globe. You may have seen our announcements with Verizon bringing together their ThingSpace API, programmable network APIs, together with Microsoft's IoT Hub and IoT Central APIs to provide that end-to-end programming environment for developers. You may have seen us bring the power of Azure Sphere together with the AT&T Guardian device to create a root of trust-based public safety offering, or more recently with Telstra, where we're combining our capabilities along with Telstra's narrowband IT to deal with deal with video analytics at the edge. So that's naturally led for conversation that started off in product marketing and led into the network. You couple those sort of conversations with a secular trend towards SDN and NFV, software-based networks, and the adoption of cloud-friendly technologies like the service-based architecture and 5G, and you really got something where Azure becomes more and more applicable to the core network itself. And that's what Azure for Operators is. It's the use of cloud technologies for core networking workloads, whether that be for the Evolved Packet Core, the SBC, SD-WAN, enterprise firewall. It's really leveraging the power of the cloud to make the network more efficient, more effective, treating the infrastructure as software, not a vertically integrated hardware stack, and then bringing the power of AI and ML together to deliver self-optimizing networks and massive end-to-end automation, allowing people to scale to take advantage of the next generation of industrial IoT. Now, as we do that, there's often a lot of debate in the industry of what that means between sort of the operators and the hyperscalers and how they're going to work together. We thought it was easiest just to write that down and share with you what our principles were. And for us, this is not a fundamental change in business. This is essentially us leveraging the playbook that's proven so successful on the enterprise side of our business and applying it to a new customer-driven area, which is the operator's network itself. So we're bringing the power of cloud in place to help future-proof folks' network by making it more software-driven. We're taking out costs through extreme automation and flexible infrastructure. And then most importantly and most excitingly, open up the new revenue streams, helping people leverage the power of the programmable network to create new revenue streams to monetize these deep investments in 5G. In the process, however, Microsoft is and continues to be a partner-oriented company. Our intent is for the operator to own the customer, to own the product. We just want to see it powered by our technology because fundamentally we're a platform business. Our focus is on moving workloads to a carrier-grade cloud. And for us to do that, for us to take advantage of cloud technologies for the mobile operator and for the wireline operator, we really needed to change the definition of cloud away from sort of the traditional centralized public cloud regions into a hybrid model. We'll meet you where you are, whether that be at the edge of the enterprise, the edge of the network, the edge of the cloud, or in the cloud itself. We see a value in providing a common orchestration layer, common lifecycle management, common security and policy, and common DevOps across that, regardless of where you're at, but still being able to place things physically where it's needed in the network, because we know telecom is heavily distributed. That's not going to change, so the cloud had to change to match that. The other thing I think it's important to note is that Microsoft is neither intending to become an operator. We didn't buy Affirmed or Metaswitch to become an operator. We bought them as first-party workloads that could help us better define a carrier-grade cloud, and we didn't buy it to dominate the ecosystem. We very much believe in the power of an open and interoperable ecosystem, and we're just as happy to see anyone's software, regardless if it's our own first-party software or whether it be from our friends at Ericsson, Nokia, Samsung, or others, working on the Azure cloud to bring value to the operator. And this is very much an ecosystem play for us. We're in this for the long haul. This is going to be a journey. We've invested long-term. We expect this to take a long-term transformation. We just believe that the power of the cloud together with the power of 5G brings benefits both to the operators as well as our joint customers, both the enterprise, the consumer, and government. question I often get is, what does that look like? What does that journey look like? And I want to really present the fact that there's three basic models we see emerging in the industry, and I'll talk to you a little bit about timeframes. First of all, when I started this journey about 18 months ago with Microsoft, we were at sort of what I'll call the first layer, which is software-enabled services, which is really where you're starting to see the power of software-based services come in, but rely primarily on completely on-prem deployments. So at the enterprise side of the house, you had edge compute. We've got more than 16 partnerships with operators and managed services providers around the globe for us to be able to offer a combination of the operator connectivity, both backhaul as well as local private networking, be that 4G or 5G or CBRS based on the enterprise site. We also had, in sort of terms of dealing with core operator workloads, the ability to deliver virtualized packet cores, so software-based containerized packet core workloads, which essentially is we've got more than 115 of those with different operators around the world with our acquisition of Affirmed. With the acquisition of Metaswitch, we have more than 400 customers through some form of software-based voice technology. Now, what's happened, and more recently, is we're seeing our very largest customers move a lot of those workloads, whether it be the 5G control plane, which they are centralizing. The more they distribute the edge compute and have more assets out on the customer side, the more you need to centralize to make it maintainable. And so as a result, we're seeing a lot of our largest operators operate their control plane, their 5G core control plane in the cloud. Similarly, we're seeing people taking their voice infrastructure, which is a service line that's matured quite substantially, and they knew new ways to both integrate that experience with that mobile native experience on the voice and the communication side with the next generation of collaboration techniques, or they're just looking to find a way to manage the cost of that infrastructure down over time. Cloud has proven to be an incredibly effective route for that. And that's where we start to see the evolution of cloud-based functions, and that's becoming extremely popular and seeing that more and more today. The last thing I'll say is, as I look at the current round of demand from the customer, in other words, what are we seeing in operators, RFPs, and RFIs? We're increasingly seeing people adopting cloud-enabled services. In other words, what is it like, what is the platform to use cloud technology as part of the core service delivery in the core network? And we're seeing that gin up considerably, especially in the last 6 months. And you'll see us and others making announcements in this space now where people are starting to see the deployment of cloud technology, not just in easily centralizable workloads that can take place in public cloud, but you're going to see distributed cloud capabilities where you start to see workloads like the user plane function, like the VDU and the VCU and the RAN, as open RAN becomes more interesting to people and virtualized RAN becomes more interesting to people. You're seeing those functions pull back to just at the edge, the far edge of the network. And so that's, and that's where we truly get to cloud-enabled services. And that's an exciting development, which is accelerating much faster than I would have said so 18 months ago. So we're very, very excited about that. So what does that look like end to end? What is, Azure for operators? What is the stack? If you think about it, for that other picture that I just shared to be true, we start off at the interconnect layer. We need to be able to be deeply interconnected with the carrier. We have today connections, more than 20,000 peering points established, 500 different carriers around the globe. We have more than 200 carriers that direct connect their private networks directly into the Azure environment, giving that straight mobile to cloud and end user to cloud experience. We have also extended those capabilities with our Azure global offering, allowing people to further their reach. That gives us just the ability to be connected into the cloud so that you can't do cloud managed and cloud connected, the last picture I showed you, without that connectivity. And that gives us the ability to offer that to the operators. Then we put on top of that a form factor that's applicable, whether I talked about it earlier, we'll deliver something at the edge of the cloud, the edge of the network, at the edge of the enterprise. That makes sure that we have the cloud where you need it, when you need it, to manage the different functions depending on which ones, as we talked about in that previous picture, you need. Then we place on top of that the ability to manage the network itself, whether that be your voice and your packet core or your radio access layer, software-based components, either first-party solutions delivered by Microsoft with our Affirmed or our Metaswitch acquisition, or third-party. We're very pleased to see folks like Mavenir and Druid, our friends at Nokia and others who are placing their software packages to run with Azure at the edge. So whatever makes sense to the operator and whatever makes sense both from a brownfield and a greenfield perspective, we support that layer. We then expose that as a series of APIs upwards. We expose that programmable network up through our stack of value-added services. So whether it be through our our mixed reality offerings like HoloLens, up through connections into Teams or Azure Communication Services, the APIs we expose outwards, up through IoT Central or an IoT Hub, or up through our gaming assets. We essentially create the APIs off the programmable network and expose those to both Microsoft parties, helping you monetize your 5G investments, or up to our large developer ecosystem, who the Microsoft partners that build the various software applications that work on Azure are all exposed up that layer, and then we expose those APIs so they can take advantage of the programmable network. So as you're building in network slicing and programmable network features within your network, we're not just exposing those for our internal use, we're also giving them back into Microsoft's large developer ecosystem carried through our DevOps tools to help you monetize that network. And really where we see this being different is this is a truly carrier-grade cloud. We have the telco DNA. We've made the acquisition of the people and capabilities to have folks that have built telco applications, telco workloads for years. We couple that with the hybrid cloud strategy from Microsoft, bring on our IoT assets and add in the AI and ML capabilities we've got, and we're truly forming the basis for the next generation of communications networks to be created. The other thing I get a lot of questions about is, okay, that's awesome, but we need, 5G is great, but we want to monetize that next level up, and that's where a lot of the excitement is. And this is really what I'll say is not just for the operators, but for the customers of the operator, be they retailers, consumers, retail accounts, consumers, large enterprise or government. There's a vast number of sort of what I'll call smart connected scenarios that are out there right now. We're seeing massive interest in this, whether it be from in the vehicular space for V2I and V2X type applications where you're having the vehicles communicate with the infrastructure, whether that's for updating the onboard services and capabilities or the car itself, or communicating with the infrastructure to make the whole in-car driving experience more safer. We're seeing an explosion on the manufacturing side. This is an industry I thought would take a little bit longer to take off, but really what we're seeing is a huge amount of interest in the use of intelligent video for things like high-value asset tracking, for workplace safety, for production and distribution quality assurance purposes. In addition, we're just seeing a lot more interest in condition-based monitoring overall and private networks in large industrial facilities that maybe aren't as suitable for Wi-Fi. We're seeing a lot of interest in that field. Similarly, we're seeing in the agricultural space, just in remote locations, whether it be oil rigs, farms, mining facilities, defense installations, public sector installations, we're just seeing a large interest in being able to take a combination of private networking, just like you have very little probably wired up in your home still. A lot of these installations no longer want to have wired facilities. They want to have an 100% wireless experience. They're large. They've got things that are outdoor and moving. So therefore, they need one sort of common connection and control plane, which is offered by cellular connectivity, connected with private compute, often in places they don't have sufficient backhaul to go all the way to the cloud for everything. So an idea that you have some localized processing to manage some of the data and processing that you need to have access to instantly versus that processing which is done remotely. All of that's of interest and exciting here. And so that's really where we see a lot of stuff taking off. In fact, we're seeing that take place on a platform, and I'll describe as we do that, a little bit of how we see that happening. I've got the sort of an example of where we take a Azure Private Edge Zone, which is essentially our single tenant box at the edge of the network, which we can then bring together a combination through Azure Virtual Network Manager, say the SD-WAN and the firewall you need for the backhaul, connected to the virtual EPC and the vRAN solution you need to provide the connection out to the user community, all managed on a single box as a managed service by the provider, whether that be a carrier or a managed service provider. And then we let them have access on the enterprise side to a rich catalog of Microsoft applications. So as a result, you can get shop in a box, dock in a box, farm in a box, whatever sort of mix and match of IoT capabilities you want, all delivered on one platform as a managed service to the customer. The key thing is this is Microsoft's platform offered through the operator of the managed service community. And for this is why so much of the work being done by the MEF in terms of how they bring that end-to-end experience, how they bring that secure end-to-end experience together in a multi-vendor, multi-operator environment is so important to us, because without the basic connectivity to do all this stuff, all the cool scenarios I just talked about simply aren't possible if the plumbing doesn't work, right? These are the kind of things that nobody wants to think about, but the minute they don't work, you know it, because everything shuts down. And hence Microsoft's interest in the MEF, because a lot of what they're doing provides the enabling technology for us to harness all this cool stuff on top of it. And I'll leave off with an example that I think is probably even more relevant to MEF, where we were able to co-create a service with an operator, with our friends at Etisalat, who are today offering to their small business customers a clean pipes initiative, where they are offering high bandwidth internet connectivity through to their small business customers, and then using a Palo Alto or an Fortinet-based appliance to offer firewall and security services in the cloud to make sure that's a clean pipe solution. This fits in beautifully with the MEF architecture that Pascal and the team are working on to provide end-to-end SASE-like services to the customer. And the more, today we hand-strung this integration pre some of the existing MEF standards coming out, but in the future we look forward to being able to give the mix and match capabilities for any one of the array of vendors, SD-WAN and firewall and security vendors, ease of integration into this, because with the work that we're doing with the MEF, with the LSO and Sonata, the easier it gets for the operator to implement this with the vendor of their choice and expand it out to more and more services. So we're really looking forward and very supportive of the work the MEF is doing in this space to make these services more accessible and easier to use by the operators. So I hope that gave you a pretty good feel for where Microsoft is going in this space. I know I threw a lot in a very short period of time, but as I said, you can see how all the work that we're doing in terms of simplifying and automating operations for the operator, combined with putting together a complex layer of services to enable, on top of a programmable network, takes the type of services and takes the type of frameworks and definitions that are being done in the MEF. And as a result, Microsoft's incredibly honored and excited to be part of the MEF organization, and look forward to seeing what's coming out. Thanks for the great work, guys, and hopefully that was helpful today in giving a perspective of how we see the market evolving. Thanks very much, and have a great day.